What's going on, everyone? How are we doing? Thought I'd jump on a little live because it is the morning after the big update of yesterday from Sorare. The big roadmap update came in, and I think we've had enough time to digest it, ask the questions. If you are in the chat now and you're wondering what the hell are you talking about, we're going to go through it in brief. I think we've all had time to digest it, get our heads around the crux of it, the main, the belly of the update. And we've had, hopefully, an evening's sleep on it. I don't know where you're watching from in the world, but maybe if you're watching this in future via recording, we're just going to have a nice calm chat. Let's chill, yeah? Got some music in the background. I've got a nice cup of coffee. And, we're just going to take it easy. Good morning, everyone. Big shouts out to Looking for Food, bigging up Chani in the chat, live and early. We've only just fired this out, but I thought, sod it, let's just get straight into it. So, essentially, we're going to bounce through the roadmap really quickly, brief. I think most of us watching this will probably already know what was in it. I think I've had time myself to digest it a little bit more now, and I think that I have a better understanding of it today than I did yesterday, and it's changed my feelings on some of the things. There's still some bits of it that I don't particularly enjoy, but I think that I'm balancing on the positive side a little bit more. Definitely this morning had a couple of conversations with people. I've taken in a lot of the community's feedback from their streams and the live chats, and yeah, it was a lot, right? I think we all were a bit surprised by the magnitude of this update. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over and we can have a little look, hopefully, at the update. So you probably all saw this yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and read it all out, but if you didn't see it, this is just a quick oversight into yesterday. Sorare announced a massive product roadmap that they announced was going to be like their most, what was the word they used? Not challenging. Anyway, it doesn't matter what word they used, but it was a massive, ambitious update, and it definitely was. I think it was way bigger than I expected, way bigger than most of us expected, and in short, so as of August, so the beginning of most of the European seasons, is going to change massively. It's not even going to look remotely similar to what we've been used to up to this point, as the update kind of got into. A lot of the game modes that we're used to seeing are going to kind of phase out and turn into the new iterations that have kind of been outlined. In short, what that means, if you're just catching up on this now, what I've taken from it is between now and August, Cap 240 as we know it is going to be phased out. So next weekend, I think this weekend actually will be the last time that you can win your rewards in cash in Cap 240 the same way that you did last week. Then in between the following weekend and August, when the new everything kind of stops, we're going to have like a transitional period where you'll still be able to play Cap 240, but it's going to be very different. I'll get into that in a sec, and we'll talk a little bit about how people are going to attack that. I'm going to get into some of my team building for the weekend, the last big roll of the dice at Cap 240 as we know it. And there's a lot of other key takeaways from it. We are going to be losing Rare Plus. So if you are a player like me, who plays mostly in Rare, but has like a decent enough selection of Super Rares that you can kind of bolster up your Rare lineups with a couple of boosted performers using your Super Rares, that's gone. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. So you're only going to be able to use Super Rares against other Super Rare players in the Super Rare competitions. But what they have also done is, for those of us that are trying to like level up to the next scarcity, if you've got Super Rares in your gallery, or if you're a limited player who's got a few rares, you're going to be able to use those cards a scarcity up, even 2 scarcities up. So in limited, you could still use a Super Rare. However, those cards will be losing their scarcity bonus. So we're not going to see like 30% bonuses on cards anymore. You're just going to be competing at the base level. They're still going to keep collection bonus and season bonus though. So if you've leveled your cards up with the XP, the way we kind of see them now, where super rares don't have like that 33%. It will just be like 12. And that will mean that you can just move them down into rare or into limited, but it doesn't work the other way up. So you can't use limiteds in super rare. You can't use rare in super rare. You can't use super rares in unique, and so on and so forth. Right? Are you with me? I hope you're with me. I hope you're understand. I hope I'm not going too fast either. If there's anyone in the chat that, if I'm going too fast for you, just let me know. Anyway, so cap modes are going. Rare Plus is going. Another really key feature that they announced is we're also going to be losing All-Star on our like basic kind of like every game week modes. We won't be seeing All-Star competitions anymore. Everything is going to be split into regions, a bit like we've seen before, except these new regions are going to be called Champion, Challenger, and Contender. So we're not going to see Asia, America, Europe, the way that we've seen it before. Champion is essentially going to stay the same. What we see now as Champ Europe is going to continue as it is in its own little Champion section. Challenger is not now just Europe. We'll get a little bit into what those are in a sec. We'll have a little look at the announcement. But you're going to get a mix of European, American, etc. in that Challenger pot. And then everything else goes into this new Contender pot, which is like, for example, the Scottish Premier League, which upset quite a lot of people in the British community, I'm sure. The Croatian League, J-League and K-League, the Argentinian League, which also threw up a lot of questions from the community. And the reason for this is they've decided to weight the kind of importance or the prestige, I guess, of these tournaments based on their Opta rankings? I don't know, like difficulty ratings, that kind of thing. So a lot is changing. It's a lot to get on with. What other key things were there? Obviously, in the time between now and August, cap modes will stay for those of us that are playing now. So new people who are signing up won't have access to cap modes until between now and August. That's gone for them, essentially, from next weekend onwards. This weekend will be the last chance we got at it. U23, as Channy has pointed out, thank you, Channy, in the YouTube chat. U23 will stay almost the same. That will still be a global tournament that you can pick from across the board. So great for any U23 players, great for those of us that like to scout the next talents. So the main thing that everyone's talking about is the way that these things are firstly split. We've talked a little bit about the new region splits, but also they're going to be split by way of in-season cards and classic season cards. So what that means is, in classic season, you can use cards from all of your old seasons, and in season, you can only use cards from this season. You can also use except for like one. So you might, let's say you've got a goalkeeper from last season. You can use a goalkeeper, but then the rest of your 4 cards have to be current season in those tournaments. That's in rare and limited. In super rare and unique, I think you can use 2 old cards and at least 3 new season cards. In classic season, you're going to be playing 4 cards only, and then the top 3 positions in the top division will win cash as well. In season, you're only playing for cash, so there will be no card rewards in the in-season tournaments. They will also have what they're saying like special weekly tournaments, which will then, they might reintroduce a bit of All-Star, some cap modes, and those will apparently have cash rewards in them as well. So there will still be opportunities to win cash with your old cards, but only in those special tournaments, not in your general weekly tournaments that we see in every game week. So there's a lot to digest, right? Not only that, we're also going to be introducing, they said that, so the way we've seen this Premier League cash tournament roll out, that's a little bit like what we're going to see moving forward, except we won't see the kind of specialist versions. We're just going to see Premier League in-season and Premier League Classic. And similarly with that tournament, it will only be able to compete with Premier League cards from this season or older. And if you're using older cards, you're going to be trying to win cards from this season. And if you've got cards from this season, you're going to be competing for cash. So as you can imagine, that means people are going to be clambering for those early mints. So you're going to have to be super quick on the market if you want those number ones, number twos, or you're going to have to win them quick, right? For me, this means that first couple of months of the season are going to be absolutely manic. They're going to be quite thin, aren't they, in those like positions to win the cards, the cash in the in-season, until we get like a decent amount of supply of the in-season cards of any given specific tournament. If you're playing in Premier League, and also now Bundesliga and La Liga are going to have similar tournaments to what we've seen in Premier League. The rest of the leagues are not going to have league specific. They're going to go into the regions with everyone else, for now at least. Anyway, that's what we know up to this point. So everyone's staying calm. I've got a nice cup of tea. Well, actually, I've got coffee. I hope you're enjoying this morning. This peaceful. We're trying to calm it down. We're trying to stay calm. Everyone stay calm. So we've got a lot of big changes to get through, but hopefully good changes. I've had some time to think on it now. I think initially my reaction to it yesterday was I really didn't like that we're not having All-Star. I love the fact that I can line up players from all over the world into my lineups, and I'm a bit confused as to like how competitive I'm going to be, or at least be able to be, in these new regional splits, until I can really get into lineup builders on Sorare data and figure out where I'm going to be at in, you know, like the end of March onwards. I think the end of March is we're going to start to see the new splits. And then the beginning of the new European seasons in August is when everything will be gone as we know it. So we're going to have a transitional period between now and then the beginning of end of March. There's going to be like some kind of like little bits that will start to stagger. Then from March to August, we're going to see everything in the new regional splits, with the introduction of Bundesliga and La Liga tournaments to enter. So if you're like me, I'm not someone who's got a lot of collections in my gallery. I've got players from all over the place. I've always liked picking the players that I like from places, not been too keen on necessarily like full team stacks. I like pairing up my defenders with goalkeepers, so I've got a few teams where I've got maybe the goalkeeper and the defender, or a couple of striking options, but I don't have really like a team that I stack. I think if you are a player who's been heavy into collections and stacking and all that kind of thing, you probably aren't going to be massively affected by this as much as some others. Maybe if you're a Celtic stack holder, shout out Quinny and McBride. I did think of them particularly when this was announced and we saw that Scotland were going to be pushed further down in the pecking order. Essentially this means, you know, without the All-Star competition, if you are a player that has a stack from, say, like Celtic or, I don't know, Dinamo Zagreb, or one of these like big clubs that's found themselves in this contender pool with the K-League, J-League, etc., that up to this point have always been kind of thought of on the platform as the low end, I guess, of the prize pool, right? But it did All-Star allowed you to take your teams from those clubs and still compete at the top end in the mix to win yourself a Kane, a Musiala, a Bellingham, and, you know, previously an Mbappe. So I did really feel for people who play those stacks and have those collections and found themselves in that, because essentially, if you're using cards from previous seasons, you're only realistically going to be competing for the best cards in that pool. Not only are you only going to be trying to win from cards in that pool, another kind of underestimated point that was made in the update was the way that prize pools are now going to work. In any given game week now, you're only going to win players from the teams that competed in that region in that week. So if you're playing with, let's say, like take this game week that we're in, for example, is a very thin game week. We've got a few Scottish fixtures, a few German fixtures, and a few South American fixtures, and not a lot else apart from a little scrapings of like the kind of Asia and American Champions League. Imagine that we had a fixture week like this in post, you know, like the August split and the new changes coming into play. That essentially means that if you're playing with a Celtic stack like you would have been able to this week, you're only really going to be able to win the top cards from the teams that are playing in your section of the regions on that game week. So let's say we've got a bit of Scotland, we've got a bit of Germany, we've got a bit of South America, Argentina for argument's sake, right? That means if you were to win something with your Celtic stack this week, you'd only really be able to win against other managers who are using Argentina and Celtic stacks, right? But you'd also only be winning players from that pool that were available in that game week. So essentially you can win maybe cards that you've already got, but maybe the in-season version of said card. Then that puts you in the mix to win the cash rewards. What this does do, and this is what I took from it when I thought about it a little bit and chilled out. In-season cards are going to come at a premium. We already know that, right? If you look at the Premier League as an example, what happened when they announced that the Premier League Winter Tournament, the difference between last season's Premier League cards and this season's was probably about 30% up in value because they could compete for the cash prizes. And I think that this means that we're going to see that in every division now. There'll be people that are willing to pay a premium to compete for cash rewards every week. So if you do win those cards, we'll be in a position now where it's like, right, do I want to keep that card and try and compete for cash? Or do I want to sell that card to someone who's trying to compete for cash right now? Can you imagine at the beginning of the season that premium is going to be quite high and it's going to slowly peter off as the season goes on, isn't it? Because as we get closer to the end of the season, people are going to be less bothered about holding on to those cards because in a few weeks' time, new mints are going to come in and they're going to have to start the process all over again. I'm not sure how I feel about that personally. I think until we are actually experiencing it, it's a bit like what we can only imagine how that's going to go, how that's going to kind of play out. But I think yesterday I felt really a bit annoyed, to be honest with you. I was like, I'm not sure that I like the fact that there's only cash rewards for my old cards in the absolute top end of Division 1. That's another point, which we'll get onto in a sec, but we're going to be split into divisions based on our kind of gallery power. That hasn't really been explained in depth just yet. I recommend you watching the pitch side, I think it's like a fireside chat between Nico and Dan and Guy that's on the Sorare YouTube channel. That kind of helped me understand it a little bit more. But I think if I use my gallery in my thinking, the way I've been looking at mine is like, I might find myself in Division 1 in rare in the champ, and I think because I've got Mbappe, I've got Kane, I've got Donnarumma, I've got Ter Stegen. Why would I not? Why would I be put in Division 4? Surely I can't compete with someone who's playing with like the lesser end of the card pool on any given week. So let's imagine that me getting put into that pool, I think that I've got a good strong chance of winning, the top end prizes in Division 1. So I shouldn't be competing with anyone that is playing with lower tier cards. However, once I've put that lineup together and I've put that in Division 1, because that's where it has to go, what about the rest of my gallery from Champ? Because other than like 5 or 6 cards that are all probably going to end up in the same lineup, the rest of my Champ cards are pretty low pickings, which, a lot of us would have been using in those cap modes. Let's be honest, those players who've got that L15 of like 23, L15s of 35, that, for me, yesterday, I felt like they're useless now. What use is that player to anyone without cap modes? Obviously, they've said that we're going to have special weeklies. Hopefully, we have those frequently enough that we get enough use out of those cards. But I am a little bit worried for those cards becoming a little bit invaluable, losing a lot of their value. And, people might not want to hold on to cards like that. However, the more I think about it, if so long as my whole gallery doesn't get lumped into Division 1, because what's the point of me entering a Division 1 team with some of those cards that I hold, right? Like people like Lokonga at Luton. Surely, if I've got players of that caliber, as well, obviously I've got the Mbappe and I've got the Kane, that goes in D1, no arguments, right? I'm not trying to play that elsewhere. But the rest of my lineup, what's left over, is other goalkeepers, like Trapp at Frankfurt, for example, is he's a bit of a hit and miss goalkeeper. He was always a bit of a cat play for me. What if I've got a lineup with, say, like Trapp, Lokonga, I'm trying to think of a defensive option I've got, maybe like Van Hecker at Brighton. up front who Anthony at Man United, not a great scorer, infrequent starter, etc. And then my extra player might be someone like Josh Cullen at Burnley. Do I have to put that lineup in Division 1? Because that ain't winning nothing in Division 1. So I'm wondering, are they going to lump us in based on our gallery or based on, each individual lineup? Can I put that lineup together and then it judges it based on its scoring output or its power versus the rest of the pool? Because that for me would be like a Division 4 lineup in Champ, right? That shouldn't be competing with anything close to the best team that I can put out. So these are the grey areas for me. This is my takeaways from it so far, is I really feel like I can't do anything just yet with any decision making on my gallery until I know, am I going to be able to compete? And I think at the beginning, maybe we all get lumped into a division based on like the overall gallery. And then it says, from what I understand, teams can go up and teams can go down. So let's say I get lumped, my entire gallery goes in D2 or D1 based on Champ, right? Because I've got Mbappe and Kane. Imagine I go in there, my Mbappe and Kane team does pretty well, stays in Division 1. And then my other two lineups, because you're going to be allowed to enter multiple entries now. Let's say the other two lineups are absolutely abysmal and get me relegated into D2. So then the following week, I would imagine, right, this is how my brain is picked at it, I've got one entry in D1, and then I have two that are in D2. Therefore, I've got a better chance. That week, my D1 entry does well again, stays in D1, but my other two entries are still poor, and they get me knocked into D3. The following week, I have a D1 entry and two D3 entries that probably have found their level at this point. I don't know about you guys in the chat. Hit me up in the chat. Is that how you are kind of envisaging this divisions to work? I feel like the first few weeks are going to be a little bit of trying to figure out where people belong or where like the bulk of their lineup belongs. So we might all find ourselves in 4 or 5 weeks where in each region we might have we might be in a division. We might have a Division 1 slot and we might have a Division 2 and a Division 4 or something like that, based on like the overall power of your gallery. So I'm really intrigued by that, and I think that it's important not to get too emotionally attached to that until we can see exactly how it works. So if anyone from Sorare is watching, please let us know about the divisions. We would love to know a little bit more about that. Just going into the chat, shout out everyone who is watching via Twitch or YouTube. We've got like pretty much 50-50 balance at the moment. So I'm going to get into the chat and see, where we're at with this. It's good to have so many of you in. I hope you're enjoying the chilled music that we've got. This image here is, I guess, this is how they kind of presented the thinking behind it. The card cycle loop, classic seasons to win cards, cards to win money. Which makes sense, kind of. I think, hopefully, that should mean that, card wins are valuable to people who are like in a hurry to go and play cash, and they will be especially valuable in those early stages of the season. I think they're going to have to be extremely snappy at getting the new season cards out though, because they've also said that old season cards will become old season the minute the season kicks off, so it doesn't matter if we've got cards on the market or not. So they're really going to have to work hard at that. It's going to be interesting to see if they can turn that round quickly enough. So yeah, I think for me, as I mentioned here, look, Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, and then we have the regions, champions, challengers, contenders, and then U23. U23 is going to have a really interesting mix, isn't it? I think that's going to be one of my favourite tournaments post the split in August, because it'll be the one that we can use from around the world, right? I do believe people in the chat, Breza, shout out Breza, shout out Assets in Sport. Assets in Sport wondering if we all start in the lowest division, maybe, but not sure how that would work with rewards. I don't think that will be the case. I think they'll look at maybe gallery value, and I think the first few weeks will probably be a bit messy. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes based on gallery value or tournament wins or something like that, and then it'll be like, right, you're deemed as a Division 1, you're deemed Division 2. It might not even matter if like your contender gallery is awful compared to your champ or something like that. I think we might all just get lumped So I reckon it could be a bit messy for the first sort of month or two. Hopefully it's not. I think it'd be great if we can kind of pitch our lineup and then it does the split when the game week is locked and it's like, right, you know, a bit like on Sorare data, we can see the lineup power. It gives it a score out of 100 when we build our lineup. So we'll have a little go at it in a minute in case you're not familiar with Sorare data. I'll show you what I mean. But we get that little score out of 100. So let's say my score is based like an 86 in August, like in Champ Classic season cards, right? Then I would imagine that goes into like D1 if you've got like an 80 plus. But then if you've got like a 40, 45 or something score, then you're going to end up down in like D4 with that lineup based on its power versus the rest of the pool. And that's how I'd like to see it done. I think that would be the most pain-free way of doing it. I know it's probably like a lot of development hours though. I think that's the difference with that is if you do it that way, they're going to have to develop a lot. But for all we know, they've been developing this because this is massive, right? This gameplay update is way more than we expected, I'm sure, right? Anyway, quick sip of coffee. I hope you're all comfortable. Do give me a like or a subscribe. If you're on YouTube especially, pretty new to this on YouTube, so just trying to build things up. Getting into some of the chat on YouTube. The first few weeks will definitely be for establishing divisions. I don't think you'll get lumped in Division 1 based on gallery size or anything like that. Charlie Dunbar, thank you for your comment. I do hope that is the case. I think that is the most sensible outcome here. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some more key takeaways from it, but I think that it was only this morning that I had it clarified that we were going to have only card wins in Classic and only cash wins in current season cards. And I think now I know that, I feel a little bit more comfortable holding as many old cards. Like I said, I'm not someone who... In fact, I used to sell a lot of my card wins this season if I already had the card in my gallery. I won a Van der Voort earlier this season in the current season. And I sold it because I have a Van der Voort from a few seasons back that has built its XP up for years. And I thought, I'll hold on to my old one. Let someone buy the new one who wants it for like collections or whatever. And, you know, if I'd have known now what... You know, if I'd have known then what we know now, I would have probably held on to the newer one. But, I don't know. I think that is going to be interesting. In the chat, if you're listening, if you're locked in, if you're tuned in, if you're enjoying the tunes, let me know. Where do you stand on this? Are you making any moves now? Are you thinking of selling bits of your gallery off? After you've had a chance to sleep on it, where do you kind of stand with all of this at the moment? I definitely personally feel a little bit better today than I did yesterday. I was a little bit unsure of a few things, but I feel a little bit better about it now. I think from a business perspective for Sorare, I think it totally all makes sense. Obviously, as someone who's been on the platform, you know, I think I've been up and down already, right? When I first got on here, I was buying cards cheap. Then we had the big boom, and everyone was looking at like people like me who had some of the cards on the cheap. The prices they went to, it was like, wow, you paid 300 quid for Verts, and then he was like 3,000. But then we come back down to the point where some of the cards that I did pay for in that boom, and like even as far back as maybe a year, are now way below where they were. So my gallery's gone up and down. I've already kind of personally experienced that. I'm excited that we've got new gameplay modes. I think it's important that we mix it up a little bit. I think anyone who plays games, right, is like, it's good to kind of mix it up and refresh the game kind of side of things. But yeah, I think it makes sense for the business. I do think my gallery is going to take a bit of a hit in the short term, but I feel like I'm not considering selling up. That's one thing I will clear. It's not something I've considered at all. I've been trying to slim down my gallery a lot for the whole year. Anyone that follows me or the End Product podcast know that I've talked a lot about the need to slim down my gallery. I need to do that, and I still need to do that now. And I think even more so now, looking at it is like, right, well, I'm definitely short of current season cards. So there might be some trades to be made there. I think that I'm close to potentially competing in the Bundesliga one when I think the split happens. Like, we'll be opening the Bundesliga tournament, I think, end of March. And I think if I can get a Bundesliga win in the gallery between now and then, great. If not, then I might be looking at a swap somewhere, which I'm probably going to pay a premium on, let's be honest, right? I think we're going to see those Bundesliga and La Liga current season cards take a bit of a spike. So if you are someone who holds those, you're probably going to be laughing. But yeah, I think, like I said, I'm not panicking right now. I feel a little bit more calm, hence the music in the background. I'm going to get into one of the questions here on the chat, or a comment from Kryshek Sorare. I've not quite grasped if we will have multiple entries in classic card comps. I'm not overly worried if so, but otherwise I'll have very few entries in comparison to now. The way I understand it is we'll have up to 3 entries in each regional or U23. So that'll be in classic and in season. So if you've got 3 lineups worth of champ cards in season and 3 lineups worth of old cards in champ, you could enter essentially 3 in old season, 3 in new season. That's how I understand it. So you could have up to 6 lineups in each of those regions. I mean, if anyone from Sorare wants to correct that, but from what I've read and how I've understood it, you could potentially have 6 lineups. If you've got that many in-season cards and old season cards, you could have 6. It says 3 entries, so yeah, I think per scarcity as well. So if you've got enough cards, one thing I do like about the scarcity is being able to go down. Is I think that was a smart move. I didn't fully understand that until I watched the Fireside chat. Someone in sorry, before I get into that, hi Stish, if you have 3 lineups, does anyone know which will be the basis for promotion or relegation? I think it's unclear at the moment how that begins, but I think, yeah, they're all they could all go up or down. So then I think the following week, you don't have to keep the same lineup. So let's say like you have a Bayern stack that smashes and goes up into Division 1. That will stay in Division 1. But then the following week, you could enter a completely different lineup into Division 1 if you so chose. But it might be like you've got a ticket for D1 for the next week, and then like if you have a relegation, your entry for the following week might be like 1 D1, 1 D2, and 1 D3, and then you can put the lineup in that fits. I mean, I don't know how they work that out, because I don't see how anyone gets to choose what goes in D3. Because if I've got a D3 entry, I don't think I should be able to play a Bayern stack in it. I think there will be. They're going to have to figure that out, right? There's going to be some kind of power. There's got to be something there that we haven't. I think that's where the grey area is at the minute, right? But yeah, I think looking at the regions, we've got like obviously the Champions region is the same as Champ Europe. That hasn't changed. Challengers, we have Eredivisie, MLS, Turkish Super League, Belgium, Brazil, Denmark, which is questionable in my opinion, Portugal, and the English Championship. Now, I don't get Denmark in there personally. I don't understand that one. I mean, if it goes on Opta, that must be down to the fact that they've had teams get out of the group stage of the Champions League a few times in recent history. But, you know, if you look at the quality of the league overall, I'm sure, you know, there's leagues in that contenders pot. You could argue, you know, Argentina is a strong league there. I mean, I'd even argue from what I've seen, at least in terms of quality, that there's some really good football, obviously, in the Scottish League and in the J League, potentially stronger than, you know, the crux of the Danish League. I think the Danish League has maybe 3 pretty strong teams in it. I guess you could argue that is the same in Scotland, right? But I think that the Japanese League has a little bit more of a spread of quality, from what I've watched. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. And yeah, I think how well that some of the power teams in those split divisions do. But yeah, anyone in the chat, any kind of tactics you're thinking you're going to employ, Yeah, so Rico Man saying Bundesliga and La Liga is only from August, so current season will be old. I think that in March they're going to introduce this in season. So I think that like from March until August there will be a Bundesliga and a La Liga tournament that will run as in season based on the end of this year's current mints. So it will give us an opportunity to kind of get to grips with the old season, new season, because we have that with the Bundesliga and La Liga, and I think that's why they've done that. And obviously they've got the full leagues. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? Mark Dickinson on YouTube. Hello, Mark. I've been playing a year, put £300 in to build around Turkey and Belgium. Would you sell and reconfigure the gallery or just hold on? I'd say if you are focused on Belgium and Turkey, you're actually in luck there, because both of those have landed in this challenger pool, haven't they? You've got Belgium and Turkey, so technically most of your gallery is going to be sat in that exact same region, so you haven't had the split to deal with. And I think this is the issue that a lot of managers have had who maybe have, like, obviously I do a lot of content with Quinny, and I know that, you know, his gallery is split almost an even mix between La Liga, which is in Champ, MLS, which is in Challengers, and Scotland, which is in Contenders. So his gallery has been fully split up. You know, like, he's not going to get the full power of his gallery in any lineups as the split stands, apart from in these special weeklies that will employ like more cap mode, all-star, that kind of thing. So I think you, my friend, are in luck, because Turkey and Belgium both fall into the same category in Challengers. So I would say you're in a good spot. Yeah, I think that's a stick situation rather than a twist one. Yeah, I would stick on that, definitely. Let's have a quick look what else we got. Rico, man, what's happening? In season is only from Prem, if you look at the graph. So I think that the way I understood it was we're going to get in season Germany and La Liga for a bit now, and obviously in August everything will be exactly the same, right? Now, let's have a little chat about thresholds, right? We've got to address the elephant in the room. Thresholds is obviously the big thing that everyone's been talking about for feels like months now, right? We've all been kind of gearing up for the loss of thresholds. It was going to happen. It was coming eventually. And, you know, we've been given now the timeline of when it will completely end. But more interestingly than that, for me, is this new kind of threshold structure that we're going to have to navigate between now and August, where we're going to be able to choose a target score that we think we can hit. And, you know, at the bottom end of that, we're a lot worse off than we are currently. Next weekend, I'm going all out on these thresholds. I'm going to try and nail them all. Try and get those decent threshold card wins in, all of that, because in the coming weeks after it, we're going to have this kind of new aim for a score. If you don't get it, you get nothing. And then at the bottom end of that, the low scores are actually like not fantastic, right? You're not going to be winning a lot of money if you're trying to. They get, I think it's 10 points down from the previous. Let me just find it. I'm here talking about it. It's on the update, isn't it? I think it's on this one though. So if we get down here, there is a little graphic. We scroll all the way down to here. Threshold targets. So, limited, 270 points you can win $2. 340 is 8. 390 is 25. So opportunity to win more, but also, you know, to do pretty much what you've been doing up to this point. You're gonna win less than half what we've been winning up to this point, and that gets worse as we go further up the scarcities, because, you know, that super rare at 320 points is coming down massively, isn't it? From 200 to 60. It's almost a quarter of what we were getting for just 10 points less. So I'm not too sure what my tactic will be to employ on this. I'm quite fortunate that I do have one of the cheat code goalkeepers. I've got Mirko Koz, who I've been sat on for a long time. It hasn't been much use for me, but it gives me an opportunity to shoot maybe for that middle. I think I will be shooting for the middle on rare, potentially. Definitely on super rare, I'm going to be shooting for the middle. Definitely limited, I think I'll be shooting for that middle. I don't enter unique. I don't have the cards for it. Rare, I think I am probably going to be shooting mostly for the low end of the rare in that period. I think super rare, I'll be definitely aiming for the low end of it after Mirko Koz loses that 0 L15 and I have to use him in the transition period. But what are you guys going to be doing in this transition period? Are you going to even bother? Some people might not even bother with it, right? The threshold being where it is, you might think that those cards are better off employed in the regions, which will also stay as normal until August, I think. Apart from in the Prem, La Liga and Bundesliga tournaments when they open in March, I think everything's going to be the same pretty much until August, if I remember rightly. There was a really good image, actually, I have to get. But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? We've got a lot to unpack here. Serious questions only. SR Monkey, welcome to the chat, sir. Any big questions people want asked, answered by Nico or Guy? We're recording the ramble with them in a few hours. I think we're going to hear a lot of those guys on the podcast. It's important we all get our heads into all the podcasts. Shout out the Sorare Ramble. I've definitely had been locked in, and I really like the theme tune. I think you guys have got some of the best music, intro music out there. So shout out you lot. Yeah, in the chat, YouTube or Twitch, if you've got any questions for Nico or Guy, get them in. Be interested to hear. Let's have a little look. So Rico Man's saying that the March graph only includes Prem, then La Liga and Bundesliga from August. I'm going to try and find that image. I think it went into a little group chat I was in yesterday. So that's right. You are right. We don't get Bundesliga, Premier League or La Liga until August. So we were not going to get that split. So only the Premier League, we're going to experience that in-season, off-season. But we will be getting it looks like, live on March 29th. We will be getting Champ, EU, Challenger and Contender. So the actual split into these new regions happens on the 29th of March. That is going to be really interesting. So the only thing that doesn't change till August is the cap modes, basically, and All-Star. We've got All-Star and cap modes until August. But we do have in-season, off-season from March 29th. So we don't have a lot of time, really, do we, to try and figure out what our galleries are doing between now and then. Because that first few game weeks in March is going to be a real scramble, isn't it, for cards. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the market does in those weeks leading up to it. Yeah, good shout on that. Thank you for that in the chat. Channy, pretty excited. I love a big overhaul, especially if it makes a lot more sense in a business perspective. It was time to cut the losses and move to a more sustainable and exciting model. I'd agree with that. I think that we'll all get to terms with this eventually. We'll all come to terms with it. It is a lot. Yesterday was way more than I expected to be digesting. I thought we were just going to be hearing about maybe how cap mode was going to be phased out, and maybe that those rewards were going to be put into sustaining a long-term Premier League Pro or something like that. But I think this is probably better because it engages a lot more of the user base. But I think that it was all a bit more than we expected to be digesting, right? And I think that's what the majority of the feedback was. At least for me, I was on a live stream with Harry when it came out, and I was just like, I didn't have long enough to read it. It was way more. You could probably see it. I think if you watch back Harry Trades on YouTube, you'll see how confused I was at that time. There was so much to take in. And it's only since watching, I think, that Fireside Chat, which if you haven't seen it with Nico, Dan and Guy, I'd recommend you watch that because that helped me understand a lot. We're also going to be getting a lot of rewards boxes, right? The thing that we've seen a little bit in the rivals, these reward boxes. It looks like a lot of people who just join in are going to be winning reward boxes. So that could be a positive. I personally haven't been lucky enough to win anything that exciting from reward boxes, but I think the idea that you could have a Division 4 win a Griezmann rare or something like that brings an element of excitement, doesn't it, for anyone playing the game? And it'd be really cool to see how that plays out. So I think that is a nice thing that I haven't really given much thought on, but actually mentioning that, thank you, Looking for Food on Twitch, for the shout on that. That is going to be cool, because I think a lot of people, for every lineup they enter, are going to find themselves in amongst at least a reward box. There's going to be a lot more box openings, definitely. So that is a good point, and definitely something that I hadn't even really given too much thought on. But yeah, that'll be cool. If like every sort of 20 boxes you open over the course of a few weeks, you might win a little card or two, and that's, it gives everyone the opportunity to feel like they can win, right? And I think that is something that maybe has been missing, particularly if you're at the lower end of the food chain. Definitely some of my lineups in that bracket, but yeah, that'll be cool. Definitely be cool for people getting involved in the game. And I think from watching the Fireside chat, there was some talk about people might not want to come into Sorare and try and figure out who they need to be picking up from the J League. They might just want to come in and play with the players they know. And I think that this new split, and especially with like the La Liga, Bundesliga, Premier League tournaments, which are obviously the big three sort of global leagues, gives them an opportunity to just come in and go, do you know what? I've no interest in watching all these other leagues. I just want to play like a paid version of FPL or something like that, and this is it now. So I get it, totally get it. So yeah, I think overall I'm definitely leaning more on the positive side of it now than I was yesterday. Like I said, I'm more than prepared for my gallery to take a hit, but I think the main issue for me at the moment is not knowing what to do until I can look at things. So if anyone's in the chat, what have you been doing like today? What have your thoughts been? How have you been preparing for this? Are you kind of placing your gallery into segments to see where your gaps are? Because for me, all I've done up to this point really is go into Sorare data and have a little look at, like filtering my cards by regions, or like selecting what leagues they play in, so I can kind of get a rough idea of where. And I think one of my key issues at the moment is I don't have a super rare champ option at all in goal. I'm actually like across the board in that for super rare. So I think that where I used to play a lot of all like rare pro, a lot of those cards are just going to be used in rare, which would feel a little bit like wasted for me, because some of them are quite good. So I'm a little bit light there. So I'm in between, do I go and buy a goalkeeper? Do I need any in-season cards? That's where like I don't like that idea, where I've got, overthink spending fresh money, rewards, etc. on new season cards, or do I just need to try and find value in the old season or use them in rare? I don't know. So that's my headache at the minute. Another headache I've got is because of the way that the splits have gone, the goalkeepers that I do have also split. So it's like, probably like in my case, a lot of my gallery was classic sort of challenger, what we now know as challenger. Obviously challenger is different moving forward. I have quite a few Eredivisie cards, and I have a few Belgian cards, so that's all right that they've been stuck together. But yeah, like not being able to use my Asia cards with my America cards, that is in the off season going to become really challenging to get lineups out, because I think I have one Asia goalkeeper at the moment, maybe two if like a move goes in my favour. And in the MLS, I have 0 rare goalkeepers. I think I might have a Brazilian one though, so I might be okay there. But it's really hard for me to envisage where my gallery is going to be in a few weeks. I really, really Can't wait to get these tools. Apparently, shout out Led. He says that Sorare data are on the case, and we should have these lineup building tools with everything the new splits in mind pretty soon. So shout out Sorare data. They're normally pretty good at delivering as well. Like, so hopefully we aren't waiting too long and we can start to see a little bit more of what's actually going on. Breza says he thinks everyone is going out to buy goalkeepers. I did have a little look on Sorare base, and I noticed that a lot of the fluctuations, either up or down, were goalkeepers actually. That's not always that's not rare though. To be fair, that tends to be the case often. Gaza asks SR Monkey to ask Nico and Guy, could you ask to find out how they sorted the leagues into the regions? Interested to know. Maybe would help people also. I've seen them kind of answering these questions on their Discord, and it's to do with the Opta ranking. But then some people have pointed out that the Danish league is actually below. So I reckon there might be a part of this, whether or not that they'll discuss it. This is me just speculating. I think this might be partly down to do with supply. Because I think if you put another fully covered league in that challenger, it then begins to make the pool a little bit too heavily weighted into like 2 or 3 of the leagues and not enough in the others. So that might explain why we got Porto, Benfica cards on the platform really recently before this, because it's like now we've got some Portugal card supply to show you about. Now we've got this team. Maybe we're going to get more Danish division. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the full Danish league, because having one licensed Danish team in there, I'm not sure fits the narrative. Not for me. Denmark, for me, doesn't belong in that. But, you know, if we're going off Opta points and it can't be argued, then it can't be argued. But for me, it doesn't feel right in that pool. I think Denmark needs to be maybe out, and I think maybe it would have made more sense. If we're talking on supply, it would have made more sense to put maybe like even like the J League or SPFL in that challenger bracket, because we have a larger supply from those divisions where we got the full coverage, and yeah, and also, you know, we've had cards from the J League for a long time as well, so we've got a lot of J League cards in rotation already that would open that division up to a lot of like legacy players a little bit more, right? So I think that it might have made more sense on a supply sentiment to put one of those divisions in there instead of Denmark, which probably, let's be real, like in rare, there might only be 1,000 cards from the Danish league in circulation right now. So it's yeah, it's a tricky one, that one. I think we'll be discussing that for a long time. And also, I'm pretty sure they mentioned in the update, I'd have to go back through it again another time, but I'm pretty sure that they mentioned that these leagues and these sort of splits might change from season to season based on like the kind of performance on Opta and stuff like that. So they'll be locked in for a season, but then next August, teams might get relegated into that and that, which I don't know how anyone else feels about that. That could really start to mess things up, right? It means we're going to have to be prepared to reshuffle almost every summer. There's not going to be any staying comfortable and farming rewards on the platform anymore, which I guess is an excellent thing for the platform. Just a bit more of a pain in the ass for those of us that are lazy and like to just stay comfortable in our comfort zones, right? So, yeah. Maybe we had it too good for too long, and that's what this is all about. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But they have mentioned there won't be drastic changes of leagues every year. Yeah, I'd expect maybe. I don't think Champ is going to change much at all unless something really drastic happens. However, I do think that it might be that we have. I don't know. I could see maybe 1 or 2 teams switching between Challenger and Contender. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 of those because there's a bit more leeway. But I think that unless they moved a team up into the champ pool and just like broadened it a little bit. But I do feel like there's a heavy weight in between the Contender and Challenger that there is, if anything, you don't need to like swap one out. You could just add one. Like, why don't we add one of those Asia? I think one of the Asia ones would be difficult. I think the Argentina League maybe, or the Scottish League into Challenger would make more sense in terms of like parity on fixtures, because in that Challenger pool in the closed season, I saw a tweet from Sorare Brazil that said there's going to be a lot of game weeks in the close of the European season where we've only got Brazilian fixtures in the midweeks, but because of the fact that we've only got a few clubs licensed from Brazil, there will be no rewards that week in Challenger, so they'll have to go into a special weekly only. So that brings up the question, are we going to get the full Brazilian league onboarded? Because if we don't, without maybe the addition of those Argentinian fixtures, we are going to see Challenger a non-starter in some of the midweeks when we've got plenty of Brazilian fixtures to play with. So, yeah, that is a potential banana peel, isn't it, that we've got to figure out. And I'm sure we'll get clarification on all this stuff from the team in the coming days. There's going to be a lot of activity from the team on podcasts. SR Monkey said that they're going to have Dan and Guy on the Sorare Ramble. And yeah, maybe we'll get them on the end product. I'm sure we're going to hear them on the Sorare Data podcast at some point as well. John Nellis is one is probably a shoe-in, isn't it? Because he's on everything, John. He's like the face of the platform, the guy. Mike Baston says, won't the new in-season start only affect Champion because all of those leagues correlate? In Challenger and Contender, there will always be a league running throughout the year that has in-season cards. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because I think that, I was saying this to my friends last night, we're going to see a crazy clamber for J-League and K-League cards the minute they come out, because they will be the first in-season cards that we get that will kind of open up, I guess, those. But then, technically, we will probably have, in that region, we should also have, still have in-season cards running from the SPFL, from Croatia. So maybe the clamber won't be as wild for them. It will just be for the collectors who need the early jersey mints, number ones, etc. But yeah, it says we need like 10 license clubs. So unless we got 10 license, coverage is one thing, license is another. We're always going to have more than 10 covered clubs. But if that league only has, like the Danish league does, like one team, that's one licensed club. That's not enough to open the pool up. But it also means that the prize pools are going to be a little bit, a lot more focused, a lot smaller. You know, if you're not playing against an Mbappe, you can't win an Mbappe, basically. Which, I'm not sure. How do people feel about that? I guess if you can beat an Mbappe, you should be able to win one, versus like Mbappe is not in circulation at the time. I do wonder what that means for the overall supply, though, because if you can only win a Kane or an Mbappe in the weeks of the season that they're playing, do we get all of them out? Are we going to end up with undersupply of the top players? I don't know. Interesting. Again, there's a lot of grey area here, isn't there, that we need to figure out. But yeah, I don't know if I'm just talking too much about all this, guys, but I just wanted to come and sort of share my thoughts on it. I was going to get into lineup builder a little bit as well, because this is the last week, isn't it, of cap mode. Are you going hard on cap mode as we know it? I'm definitely, my big target this weekend is to hit that super rare threshold, because I've got an L15 of 0 goalkeeper. If you don't know who that is and you're thinking of a little tip for the weekend, my friends, I have you covered. Your guy is Mirko Koz. He's got an L15 of 0. There he is. He's going straight in my goalkeeper slot. That allows me to put my higher power cards in cap 240, which will give me the best opportunity I can have to hit in that score, but also winning a card. This team, if you will give me a few minutes, I think has the potential to be right up there in the mix for the cards, not just the money. So this is where I'm looking at the moment. I need to keep an eye on Veerman's fitness updates, but apparently he's back in training. So for now, he's going in. He's at 60% now on Sorare data. I know they've got him in on Play Sharper as well, and there are notes to say he's been training. So let's have a little look just to check that nothing's changed since I had a look earlier. Oh, all these ads. So PSV, there he is, 70% chance to start. That's our boy. Veerman's going in. And I am going to pick Facundo Colidio after his 2 goal involvements in the last fixture. He's going in. That allows me 59 points in my final slot. And I think, for me, this is between Van Ecke, who is away to Tottenham. Not a great fixture. So a low chance of a clean sheet. I like to have a little look at the clean sheet options, the odds options. Even Usic, if he was playing, would be great. But I am going to go, ladies and gents, with Darko Nejasmic, 42% win chance, away to Istra. A box-to-box midfielder. He's going to pick up a lot of AA. That's all I'm worried about. And, you know, I think I've got a captain Veerman there. Big fixture for him. Hopefully he starts. And for me, that, I know it says 61 now, but that's only because Veerman's a 60% chance. And Mirko Koz is at 96, but that will change. So there you go. If you needed a little cheat code for the weekend, Mirko Koz is your guy. I've actually had him in my gallery for a long time. He was a trade play that I made maybe over a year ago. I picked up a bunch of limiteds of his. I kind of swept the floor. And I've managed to flip them over time when he's come in through the injury of Fructal. He's out. Fructal's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So if you did need a goalkeeper for the next few weeks in cat mode, Mirko Koz has got you at L15 as 0. He's got a home fixture against Hartberg. Is that Hartberg this weekend? Pretty sure it's Hartberg. And yeah, I'm liking the look of that. I'm feeling confident that that can get me the last threshold as we know it, people. I'm excited about that. Feeling good about it. What are your tactics for the weekend? Are you going for those cat modes, people? Surely, right? You've got to go in. Have you found out where all the midweek blue X cards will fall? Mike, that's a great question because it's one I was asking myself last night and I did search it out. And I think that those are going to be in the midweek like special weeklies because they can't go in anywhere else, can they? Realistically, they can't lump them into contender. But yeah, I think that they will go into special weeklies probably only. Let's be realistic. I can't imagine they start communicating where all of those divisions are going to land. Maybe they have an AFC, like an Asian Champions League special or something like that, and then you can use them in those games that they're available in. Do you reckon you'd be able to win rewards with traditional threshold players in lower divisions? So Rare Joel FC, I welcome, by the way. I would say, right, yesterday I was thinking they're useless. They're completely nerfed. You need to get rid of them now. They're going to 0. But the way I feel about it right now is we need to find out what is going on with these divisions, because if you find yourself in a spot where, like, if you look at that lineup on screen right now, for example, Joey Veerman's easily like a top tier 0 card, right? But then the rest of those cards are probably at best tier 3. You could argue that Colidio might be a bit better than that, but the fact that he's in what we are now calling like the contender pool, and that's the same for all of those cards, right? Technically, apart from Veerman, that team is probably a Division 3, Division 4 lineup, right? So therefore, like, all of those cards would probably be quite high-powered cards against other managers that have similar lineups to that minus Veerman, right? So I would say that those cards then become useful if I'm playing against other managers that have lineups that are made up of players that are of a similar value or like scoring output to that. Obviously, those cards have got an okay scoring output, so they're a pretty bad example. But there's a lot of cards in my gallery that, you know, like if I scroll down on the lineup builder a bit more, let's go. If you scroll down the lineup builder, I've got, some people like below, like Romani. He's like, in off the bench most weeks. Where am I going to use that card like that? Where am I going to use Conan, Jocelyn, and Dree? Where am I going to use any of these cards? Nat Phillips, do you know what I mean? Brenner, in off the bench. What am I going to do with those cards? And I think if I get lumped into Division 2 because my gallery is big, those cards become absolutely useless to me. But if I'm allowed to enter, if I'm eventually find myself with a D1 entry, and then I've got like 2 in D4, then I'm probably not going to be able to use a Veerman, but I will be able to use Romani, Endry. That's my thinking behind it, but I don't really know, to be honest. It's a good question, but I don't think it's a question we can fully answer until we know how these divisions are going to work out. And it might be that for a few weeks until you kind of balance things out and find out where we're going to be at in terms of these divisions. I don't really know how useful they're going to be. I think they'll be more useful for other people than they are for some. Because I think for me, having cards like that, without cap mode, I'm going to be waiting for special weeklies where we do have the cap modes, or I'm going to be waiting until I find myself with a D4 entry somewhere that I can use them against other managers playing with similar power in their cards, maybe. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one, definitely. But yeah, I think there's a lot. I'm getting messages actually from Dan. So shout out. I can't probably read. I won't read them out in case they're not. But he said they're going to be communicating a lot of this stuff that we're talking about in the next few weeks. So a lot more to do with prize pools, a lot more to do with the way the divisions are split. So yeah, I think it's important for all of us to not get too panicky about that. That's what I'm doing anyway. But yeah, I was a little bit worried that we might see those cards nerfed. But I think some of those cards that for me would just find themselves probably in like training lineups can now potentially be moved down into some of my limited lineups that have. I'm quite thin on limiteds. I tried to make my way slowly out of limited recently. So my limited lineups are really patchy. Like some weeks I won't have a goalkeeper, or I won't have a midfielder or something like that. And now where I can move these cards down into limited, that's maybe where they'll be used, like where they're not that strong, and I might have like a gap in limited where I need a midfielder, and it's like, oh well, I can put Efrain Alvarez in there in that limit, and at least it gives me an entry. So yeah, I think Brezza saying they shouldn't be getting rid of cap modes, in my opinion. Makes all the L15 under 40 players become useless. Yeah, like I said, I think we've been told that we're going to get special weekly sort of cap modes, and there will be cash prizes in those. So they will be. It just depends on how often, I guess. Hopefully it's often, because I really enjoy the cap modes personally. I love that game mode, so I'm absolutely gutted. Most gutted thing for me was losing regular cap modes and losing All-Star. But yeah, I think overall, I think I'm definitely leaning a little bit more positively, feeling better about it today, a bit more understanding. I think that the fact that the card prizes are not happening in the cash mode, it's either cash or card, not both. It should hold up the value of the cards that you're winning at least. I think it might mean our old cards take a bit of a hit as time goes on, but hopefully the XP kind of boosts up that. Overall, I think I'm expecting to see a bit of a dip on my old cards, but I do think that I should have enough in my gallery to compete for cards. Hopefully I'll win some decent cards, and then it's up to you whether you hold on to them cards or sell them, because I think there will be a lot of people after a good card. So I think if you win a decent card, you should have a buyer for it, especially once this in-season split happens. I think there will be people after the new season card, so I think they'll be quite liquid. That's my thinking anyway, that I think it'll be easier to sell your rewards in the new structure than it would have been now. That's my opinion, at least. I don't know. None of us are experts here. We're all learning as we go. So this is all speculation for now. But But yeah, I'd say I'm excited to try the new game mode out. The new game modes, trying things out. Little shout out to my gallery here. Look, where is he? I'm really worried. Is anyone else holding a turkey? I'm not liking the situation for him at Lyon at the moment. He did play in the cup, and he made he made a goal and assist. So maybe he forces his way back into the first team for those league fixtures. But yeah, I'm missing my forwards at the minute, big time. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's if they all start this weekend, that's a banger. We've got 4 outfielders who are all capable of a decisive. A goalkeeper who comes in with an L15 of 0, with a home fixture. A 50% win chance there. If he just doesn't concede 3, I'm hoping that gets in amongst the cards. So I'm going to lock that one in, peeps. Cap 240 rare. Let's do that one next. Let's see if we can lock in the 3. I want to try and get all 3 of the thresholds in. If I go to suggest, it's going to always give me a ridiculous option. Let's see what we got. I mean, the thing I like about this suggestion, before I even get into the rest of my teams, is apart from Szymanski, I think the rest of these cards, none of them would go in like my strongest lineup in that region, in the game weeks as we know them. So yeah, I'm not thinking about future with this. This weekend for me is all about let's lock in, let's win those cash rewards, and I think that team there looks pretty nice, actually. Trap's always a cat mode play for me, because he really should be keeping more clean sheets than he does. They're at home, they got a good fixture, a nice low L15 of 46, 11% bonus. For me, that is like optimum pick. The only other thing that sometimes goes, when I'm picking goalkeepers, I always go here, odds, clean sheets. Ter Stegen with a 60, you're not even going to consider him in 240 for me personally. Kevin Trapp is probably who I would have picked anyway. 46, 53% of opposition score, 40% of a clean sheet, and a very low percentage of free goals conceded, which for me, so long as you're not conceding free goals in cap mode, your goalkeeper, in cap mode for me, right, you can get 2 decisives and then the other 3 players to just start and get 10 to 15 AA. And if you're using cards that have a decent bonus on them, you're laughing. I'm a bit... If I'm concerned about anyone, it's this Gustavo Hamer play, but I guess that's just because he comes in at 44. I'm just going to see what other options I've got below 44 points, just to see if there is another one. They do have a half-decent fixture, but I do think that they're going to get battered by Luton. I think Sheffield United are by far the worst team in the Premier League this season. Salamanca's against Lecce is not a bad shout. He has a decisive in him, doesn't he? They're at home. Really do. They came 32. The only problem with him is he hasn't started in the last 4 games. Hosselu, big fixture. He's not likely to start, is he? Calimuendo is another one of those. He's very decisive dependent, not a lot of AA, so I'm not going to use him. Lecaba's always a rotation risk. He's not going in. I mean, Sesko even is, but he's in form. He's justified his starting position in the last few games. To be fair, I think that Hamer shout is probably the one. I mean, Sorare has a great fixture. I mean, he could be a U23 option for a strong U23 forward there this week, I think. That's great. I mean, he's a good shout for cap mode, isn't he? 33, and that's Sorare on loan to Hull, playing Swansea at home. That's a great fixture for him because he's got that AA in him as well, hasn't he? In Super Rare, do you think the Wales will snap up every higher tier player just so nobody else will have them? Pranksy picking up 10 SR Bellinghams when they drop. I mean, I'm going to be honest and say I'm never I'm never in the market for a Bellingham. Those are the sort of cards I try and win rather than try and buy. So I think there'll be like a battle between maybe 5 or 6 of the whales for like that level of card. The rest of us will have to hope that we win something as good as that, especially at super rare. I mean, it's not something that it's not the sort of money that I'd be looking to put in just yet. But I definitely, it's exciting to try and win those cards, isn't it? If there's potential there. We'll find out a bit more about the prize pools and, what that entails soon. But yeah, I'd love to win a Bellingham. I'm expecting the prices of those to be crazy. Mike Baston, the background music, very therapeutic. See, that was on purpose. For those of you that don't know, my day job, away from playing so rare like an absolute maniac, is I'm a music producer, DJ. So this is my job, selecting the music that fits the tone, the mood, setting the atmosphere. Normally I'm in a club trying to make people dance. Here, I'm trying to make people calm. Let's chill. Everyone just calm down. Let's have a little talk, a discussion. We've seen no caps mode in any of the chat. It's been very civilized. It's been great. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure, actually. I'm going to wrap up in a minute. I think I should probably... Let's lock in like a Cap 240 rare and a Cap 240 limited, if I can do one. I'm not sure what my options are there, to be honest, because I'm quite light on goalkeepers. But I think... I mean, Sesko is a good fixture. I'm just going to see if there's a better play that I maybe use him in champ. Fernando. Fernando's been starting, actually, in the friendlies. So I'd expect him to be in amongst the starters this weekend, as do most of the users by the looks of things. So he's a great cap score. If you really want to push another good quality player in there, I could probably push him in place of Sesko and try and upgrade probably Hamer. He's the only other one I don't fancy there. Let's see what that looks like, actually. Fernando instead of Sesko. Or even Sorare. I don't know. For now, let's save that. Let's save that for now. I might move Sesko around once I look at what my sort of champ options are. Because I definitely now want to be winning some of those champ in-seasons, don't I? To start stacking those up, ready for the changes. Not that it will matter too much, because I guess in-season will start when the new season cards come out. So it might only be for any sort of specials that we get in between now and then. Actually, no, we are going to have in-season, aren't we? We're going to have in-season, off-season. So, yeah, I do need some champ in-season cards. Okay, the next one I'm going to try and do is Cap 240 Limited. We're going to try and do the hat-trick this week. Do I have any goalkeepers? I do. Oh, Matt Ryan. He was sub. Is he expected to start? What was that fixture? Back from the Asian Games now. Miguel Vargas had an absolute shocker. Oh, there he is. There's our guy. I forgot I had another limited left of him. Right there. That's why. That's straight in there. Right. We have to nail this one now. Let's have a look. Right. Odds on clean sheets. We got João Mario on 45 up here. Playing away to Arouca. 45 opposition score. Paulo Diaz. Oh, come on. All day. He's got to go in. And yeah, because we can now we got the 0, we can afford to put some big scorers in there. What about Xavi Simons? He's going in, isn't he? He's definitely going in. Right, 120 points. We've got a lot to play with here. Rodrigo against Girona's a tough one. Dusan Tadic is in 100%, and that leaves 67 points. We can go with Rodrigo, Cabanillas, Santiago Sosa, Marcelino Moreno. I'm going to have to go with Simons here. Rodrigo. They're at home. It's going to be a great game, that, by the way. Captain, I am probably going to go with Diaz. I'm a little bit swayed by this pick score, though. Current form, got good AA in him. In games that they keep a clean sheet. He's kept a clean sheet there. Away from home. Maybe Tadic is the play here. What's his current form saying? Not great. Not great at all. Oh, man. Let's go with Simons. That's my guy. There we go. Now, if I'm not winning a hat-trick of thresholds with that, then there's something seriously wrong. I think, as long as Veerman's going to start. Otherwise, that is going to be switched out, isn't it? But I like the look of that. I think I got a good chance there of the hat-trick this weekend. People, best of luck this week with your lineups. Big weekend, the final weekend of Threshold as we know it. I think we might have a midweek cheeky one in the week next week, and then the weekend after is when we get the new Threshold, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just have a little look. February 16th, so that's next. Oh wait, no, wait. 16th is not. That's the midweek, right? Okay, 451. Yeah. So yeah, that's the midweek. I think our music might have finished as well. I think I've timed the ending of this perfectly in terms of where we're at. If you enjoyed that bit of background elevator music from the Seaberg Library, then you're my kind of person. So yeah, people, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you're all having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're locked in. Thanks for joining me. Do give me a little like, subscribe. If you are following on Twitch, I will be jumping on at some point, I guess, with Quinny to do the End Product podcast. Hopefully sometime this week. We've got to make sure our schedules align. And failing that, I like to pop on from time to time. Thought it was important that we had a little look at what's going on this week. And yeah, I'm glad that we had a nice, calm discussion. It was good. It was very constructive. I think we all learned something here. So best of luck on your Sorare journey. Like, subscribe, share, do all of the madness. And I will see you again real soon with a bit of luck. Cheers, everyone.